Hey everyone, welcome to the latest installment of MSP Business School. I'm Brian Doyle, as always, with you. And joining me as well are both my co-hosts today. We've got Tim McNeil and Rob Rogers. What's shaking, boys?
How you doing? Living the dream over
Doing,
here.
man, doing. Timmy's looking a little haggard today, man. He's looking
Yeah.
like it's been a rough one.
It's been a little back to back today. It's been a little back to back. Yeah.
Well, Tim, that probably is going to lead us into what we're going to talk about today, because it's show season, which means there's a few cocktails in your future very soon, right? So, and you look
That's
like you can use
It's
one
not
right
true.
now.
Yeah.
But what we want to talk about a little bit today is, all kidding aside, show season's on us, right? We all know there's a number of conferences that have already taken place. They're happening, March through June, end of August through, Thanksgiving is really prime time for the conferences. And, it's time to go hit them. But the question on the table is, do you have a plan when you go to the events? And how do you maximize the time that you have there to do as much as you can from a business perspective, while not losing sight on having a little bit of fun along the way, and making sure that you're also taking advantage of the venue, the location, the place that you're at, that maybe wouldn't be a place you would normally visit if it wasn't for a show like that.
Mhm.
So, with that, guys, maybe we can start with, what can you do to plan ahead of a conference? And let's talk about things from two different perspectives. The owner who's going to attend a show, and then for the owner that's going to attend the show and bring some of his team with him, or for the team that's going in lieu of the owner, when you're not the primary person responsible, what else are you potentially doing as well?
Yeah.
So, Rob, you want to kick that off?
Sure. Yeah, I'll kick it off. So I've done this show circuit both as the owner and as the employee, right? And I think there's a couple things that you have to think about, and I'll start with the owner side, Brian. You go there. The number one thing that you go there for is your relationships, your education, and then, maybe you're also going there to kind of like feel out other MSPs that are looking to buy or sell, right? Like there's some networking that has to go on. It's not all just going to breakouts all the time and trying to, maximize your education. There's social education and networking education that you have to do as well. So the pre-game planning that you do is vitally important for that, in my opinion. The number one mistake that I saw people make is go there and immediately start hanging out with your peer group, right? You don't need to hang out with your peer group. You meet your peer group once a month, right? You need to go outside of that and try and try and use other resources out there. So for pre-game planning, for me on the ownership side, look at that agenda before you go there, have a meeting with your staff, and make sure that everybody is going to different breakout sessions, and you're not going to the same breakout, right? That would be my number one thing that you're doing. Timmy, I mean, you've done this a lot too on your side.
Yeah, I mean, I would completely agree. And if you're switching over, if you're not the owner, or if you're the owner who's bringing employees with you, exactly what Rob just said about the breakouts. I think it's really important, especially the larger shows, the DattoCons, IT Nations of the world. They really have breakout sessions that are very specific to what your role is, right? So if you're a COO, or if you're more involved on the sales side, you should be going to those. And there should be some sort of, I don't want to say report, but you should have some sort, as the owner, you should be giving your employees some sort of template, whether it's something that they write on paper, or just something that they're writing on a computer during the breakout sessions, to make sure that they get as much information as they can from that breakout, and they bring it back to the team, and you talk about it maybe over dinner or drinks later with your immediate team. And then while you're in there, you're probably going to be sitting next to other peers that are in the same position at a different MSP and in a non-competing territory. And that's a great time to do what Rob just said, and make sure you don't only hang out with the people that you know.
Yeah.
Because that's really what a lot of this is getting out and meeting new people. That's the biggest part.
I love that. And what both of you guys said, I mean, I think I'll add a little to the prep process as well. So, when I think about it from an ownership standpoint, one of the things that I used to like to do before going out to shows when I was running, an MSP and kind of playing that role was talking to my team and going, what do you want me to find out for you while I'm there as well, right? So I would go to key members of my team and go, here's the exhibitor list. Anybody here you're thinking about for your division that I need to get information for? Here's the agenda. Any of these sessions, ones that you want to get specific detail that you think can help this business? Because sometimes it's nice just to get a different set of eyes and different seats to really help you kind of look at that. Then the next thing I would do is look at the attendee list that usually gets sent ahead of time to some degree, right? Usually now it's app based and you can go into those apps and see everybody that's going to be attending. I would look at the bios and schedule meetings with specific people I want to see, because one of the challenges you run into is this is a very social event. You may see somebody that you want to meet up with and have a conversation with, and you might see each other for 3-5 minutes at the bar. They're in a conversation, you're in a conversation. You have that connective tissue where you meet each other and you have it, but you don't get to the point of business that you want to. And again, it's because everybody's schedules are very fluid during these things, and events bring people, people that were going to be at the bar tonight might get asked to go to a ball game, right? And boom, they take that next turn. So you got to make some formalized appointments ahead of time, nail down some, hey, let's meet at 2:00 on Wednesday and for 15 minutes down in the ballroom, or whatever the case may be. So that's something those are two things that I like to do before going on a meeting. Probably the last thing I really like to do is picking out what are the must-see agenda items. I want to be able to use this for social too, but there are usually a couple speakers that are talking about a couple topics that I know are going to benefit me directly if I go listen to them right away. And those are the ones I try to go to. And I try to spend, my time with breakouts. I don't usually spend more than a third of my time in breakouts, quite frankly, because there's so much networking to do. But I also don't want to be there at the end of it going, man, I didn't hit one of those sessions and I got nothing to bring back to the team.
Yeah.
Except a bunch of war stories about me and other MSP owners and stuff I care about only.
So to piggyback on that a little bit, I force my reps to go to all the breakouts. They're a full day work day for me. And to Timmy's point, we always meet at the end of the day, right before dinner, right before the cocktail hour, and they have to explain the breakouts that they went to and kind of grade them. And I'm not doing it to see that they were there. I want to know what was going on. I don't get to see all the breakouts, right? So them explaining the breakouts to me that they went to is very beneficial. And the second thing that I like to do is your vendors that you have relationships with, see if they're going to have somebody that is going to be there that you're always communicating with over email, and build up that FaceTime. Right. So just if your Dell rep's going to be there, Barracuda, whatever it's going to be, and start building up that relationship with them. So I like to do that part as well.
Yeah. And so one of the easiest things to do is something that you said, Brian, and that's just meeting people in passing, right? And setting up an actual time to sit down, even if it is for 10 to 15 minutes, is huge. I can tell you that, we were at ChannelCon 8 weeks ago or whatever it was. I have, not long after this podcast is being recorded, I've got a call with somebody that I had met at ChannelCon, talked to him for a short time, had every intention of meeting up with him again. And here we are 8 weeks later. So don't do the mistake that I did. Just find some FaceTime. Now, this guy, turns out we didn't realize how much of a rock star he was and that he'd have a posse around him the whole time. But still, it's just, when you know that you need to be talking to somebody, make sure that you have 10 to 15 minutes of FaceTime, even if it is meeting at the bar, but just make sure that you've got that time individually for that person.
And I think as we move a little bit later into this, we should talk about follow-up tactics as well, because the money isn't in that first conversation that happens at the conference. It's how you follow up now off campus.
Yeah.
And really get involved. So we've talked a little bit about preparation. Now we show up at the show, right? And there's a lot of different things that are going on. There's, vendors galore, there's t-shirt cannons, there's keynote speakers, there's just all this pageantry that goes with these shows too. I just registered. What's my next step if I'm an owner?
Tim?
Yeah. So if you registered, what's your next step? I mean, as far as when you're there, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as far as when you're there, look, you need to know the vendors that are there. You've got to be a lot of what we've already talked about, making sure that the vendors that you already use and utilize, that you're getting some face time with them. If you're in a peer group, you should be meeting up with your peer group if other members will be there. But again, don't fall into the trap of always being with those peer group members.
Yeah, it's the launching pad. Yep.
That's an easy thing to fall into, right? We see that everywhere we go. But the biggest thing is figuring out where you are as an MSP. And an example that we know of from Abe Garver, because he's been on here a couple times, is IT Nation last year. They had a room, a dedicated time for MSP only behind closed doors, where there were 7 or 8 PE firms there, and they would field questions to any MSP that was interested in the M&A market. So it's just really understanding what is available, what days it's available, and hitting the key points that will help your business grow.
Yeah.
And if I can jump in there for a moment, what I liked what you just said there, Tim, was, you don't want to be with your cronies nonstop, but I think there is an advantage to going to anybody that you're familiar with right from the start to also find out what are the non-agenda driven events that are happening around. Vendors often hold block parties. People will, get tickets for baseball games. There's other events that are going on around the event as well, as those things close. And sometimes they're hard to find out about if you're not in the right, social streams or that kind of thing as well. So, meeting up with your friends, getting the lay of the land, hearing what they're hearing about the show, figuring out where it is I think critical for getting started, but then it's time to go to work, right? Now it's time to go to see the people that I'm coming to see that I don't necessarily have a relationship with.
Go ahead.
No, I like what you were saying there, Tim. That's all I was going to say.
Well, and just the only thing I was just going to jump in quick with, I think now more than ever, especially at the larger shows, a lot of people at pre-day events, a lot of people, they have spun off. It's a non-sanctioned event, if you will, at some of the larger conferences. So, I mean, these are all things that are becoming much more prevalent as these shows get bigger. And some of those are good things to go to. Situationally, I would say. I mean, it's something you see more of now, where ConnectWise and Datto, they would kind of shut that down in the past. They let it go to a certain extent, as long as you're not really as long as they're not in your face about it, right? It's kind of invite only. Those could be really nice events to go to.
I think one of the things that, I like to do, and this is one of my little tactics that I use when I'm at these shows, especially the really big show. If you think about, IT Nation, that first night where they have, dinner and wine, and that's the big vendor piece. Like, some of those booths are stacked 3 and 4 people deep.
Yeah.
I never go. I walk the floor and I write down who I want to see. And then I go to them the next day when everybody is in, like a breakout that I don't want to go to, right? That's when I go, because it's empty in there pretty much. And I get a lot of one-on-one time with the vendor that I really want to know more information about. So, that first night is the show part, but the real knowledge-based information I save for when, there's a breakout that I don't want to go to.
And then, I think you hit the biggest thing. Do a lap. Get familiar with with who's where within the facility, right?
Yeah.
Where are let's call it what it really is. Go do your lap around the vendors and note which aisles the ones that you want to connect with are, even if they're not manning the booth yet. Figure out where the bars are, right? Because those are the places that when those vendors shut down, they're going to also congregate if you need to get to somebody, as well. Figure out where your cronies are going to be going, but also try to find the other parties there. So I think, once you're in there, and then of course, attend some of the breakouts. These, quite frankly, we've all done them, guys, right? People put some serious preparation time in.
Yeah.
Find the ones that have interest to you, and quite frankly, show them the respect of helping fill up the room too. There's plenty of time for the socialization part of it, but also there's some great information being shared, and the community of speakers really step up their games at these shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's some speakers out there that really believe strongly in giving a lot of value and a lot of education. It's not just a secret pitch, right?
Yeah.
And you see these guys, and if they get invited back, they're doing a good job, and they got really good scores, because all of them get scored and graded at the end of the breakout. So if you do poorly and you were just nothing but a hidden pitch, you're not coming back. Right. So the people that are doing a really good job get to come back and get to do more shows. Like some of our friends are doing 2 and 3 breakouts this year down at IT Nation, because they just provide so much value. It's just the way to do it,
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think that's another important part is when you're trying to find these breakouts that work for you, whether you're the owner or more on the employee side, just do a little research on who's going to be actually conducting the breakout. It's usually pretty easy to tell if it's going to be more of a sales pitch or if you're going to get something out of it. Right?
Yeah.
So, and then, that's where LinkedIn is. It's extremely easy to figure these things out based on people's LinkedIn profiles.
Yeah.
And what they post, how they post, right? And that'll give you a pretty good idea of, all right, am I going to be walking into a sales pitch, or am I going to be walking into somebody who's really looking to help me?
Yeah.
And I think, look, for the most part, I think these conferences do a pretty good job of making sure that people really focus on educational and giving value, and less on the sales pitch, but still sneaks in there every once in a while.
Yeah. Very true.
All right. So we've now gone to the event. We've attended some of the parties. We've made our contacts, and now we're flying home. What should we be doing at this stage?
Well, is this before the aspirin or after the aspirin?
Well,
And the Gatorade.
Usually, it's the aspirin, the Gatorade, potentially a cheeseburger.
Okay. All right. So we're at that stage.
Poison. So, but now let's even call it, you've gotten home, you've slept,
okay,
and now you're back at the office. What are the action steps that you think an attendee to an event needs to take?
I'll go first here on this one.
Yeah.
The number one thing that you have to do is follow through with all the great ideas that you had at the show. Don't I think, what do we all do? We go to these shows, that's going to be greatest thing. You're going to see this demo and do that demo. And then life happens and you realize that you're 300 emails behind, and then you don't do anything with all that great information that you had. So set up the meeting before you even go to the show. Have that post meeting set up to where you guys validate and rank the ideas that you got from IT Nation, and then map them out in your L10. That would be the number one thing that, or whatever, weekly meeting that you guys have, where you can put it into a rock. That's the kind of the double-edged sword there, right? You get all these great ideas, but then you come back and life happens, and you don't get to implement very many of them.
Yeah.
So that would be the number one thing that I would say on the owner side. On the rep side, send emails to all the vendor reps that you met there and start building up that relationship with them. Make sure you be the one that follows up with those vendor reps that you met, or anybody else that you met. Like, have the cards. It was great meeting you. Connect with them on LinkedIn and just kind of build up your circle of influence a little bit.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, the death of any really good conference is coming back and thinking you're going to implement 10 different things within the next 90 days. And it's just not the way it goes. So one thing at a time, one thing at a time.
And, I'll close out with, from my seat, and it's all about the follow-up. Anything you committed to anybody, get out and get, and make sure you're taking it to the next step. Anybody you want to follow up with, get those emails out that you're talking about, but then set that follow-up email 2 weeks later, because they're coming back from the show with the same great ideas and the same action plan as you are. These things have a long tail. You just got to be patient sometimes, but you got to be active, actively patient in your follow-ups. Money's always in the follow-ups. We've said that 1,000 times, and which shows opportunity, whether it's new product or new things, or new relationships to explore, new M&A opportunities. It's all going to take time. So you got to make sure you're doing those follow-ups.
Yeah.
To me, he brought that great example. It's 8 weeks later and things are just coming together now.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We wanted as much now as we did 8 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Very good. Well, fellas, we're coming up to the end of our time here for this episode. For anyone that is looking to find out more information about the Trade Show Network out there, we will be including some of the links to some of the trade shows for the trade show season. And this episode will be up on msvbusinessschool.com or anywhere that you get your episodes, to include YouTube. So please go to YouTube, like and subscribe to help us out. We really appreciate it. Fellas, that's it for me today. Do you guys have any closing thoughts?
Nope, just have a plan. That's it. Maximize the time. Don't come back going, I wish I saw this, I wish I did that. And, schedule an extra day and maybe see the town.
Brian, are you going to be down at IT Nation this year?
I will be down at IT Nation, baby.
I'm going to see you there. I'm going to do a little pre-call planning, and I'm going to send you an email to let you know that we're going to be down there.
It's a perfect example of two people I don't need to spend time
Yeah,
with down at IT Nation.
out of everybody,
But we'll probably end up spending time with, too much time with anyway, over the course of 4 days.
Brian, I'm doing a breakup down there. You're going to have to come. I want you sitting right in the front row.
I'll come to fill the room, baby.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
As long as you spread out and take up as many seats as you can.
That's right. Start the wave
I
in the
think,
beginning.
I think we're dragging the mysterious Mr. Ken F down there too, so we'll make him sit in your room.
Wow, fancy people. All right, fellas. I appreciate your time. Take care. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Take care, boys.